This is for the people that have an interest, the people that want to be involved.
There was no collusion at all.
This is for the people that are upset and looking for a place to use their voice.
Both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either.
This is for the people that want to make a difference, for the people that want to be on the right side of history.
Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime.
And I get it. In today's society, it's difficult to have a political opinion and to make it be known. This can be due to fear or because you feel like you don't understand what's going on.
In less than 2 years, my administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. America's so true. Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay.
But if he can do it, so can you. Join me every Sunday on Backstories, where we'll discuss all the top political stories and how it applies to all of us. And trust me, this is not your everyday show on politics. Welcome back to Backstories, everybody. I am the host, Brandon, and I am excited to be here this Sunday to talk politics with you. Especially excited considering that we just had the midterm 2018 elections. And if you were paying attention at all, there were many great victories and many great losses on many sides. So, of course, the Democrats, they feel that they won the 2018 midterm elections. The Republicans feel that they won. And then there are the people who feel like neither side won. However, the only opinion, that matters is you, the American people. So I'm going to review what happened during the midterm elections, and then that way you guys can decide who you feel truly won. I'm going to begin by talking general characteristics first, and we're going to start talking about governor seats. So the Democrats picked up at least 7 governor seats, and that includes the typically red states of Wisconsin and Kansas. The Democrats, however, are close to losing their governor races in Florida with Andrew Gillum and in Georgia with Stacey Abrams. And we're going to cover those 2 governor races later on in this segment. But we're going to go ahead and move on to the Senate now. I'm going to start talking about the Republican side. The Republicans surprisingly were able to gain 3 seats in the Senate, and that includes Indiana, North Dakota, and Missouri. The Republicans were also able to keep their Texas seat as Ted Cruz shockingly beat Beto O'Rourke. Then, moving on to the Democrat side, they obviously lost those 3 seats that the Republicans gained. But things weren't all that bad for the Democrats because they were able to keep their Senate seat in West Virginia. And they were also able to pick up a Senate seat in Nevada as Democrat Jackie Rosen beat Republican Dean Heller. So now we also have these undecided races that occur in Florida, Arizona, and Mississippi. Okay? The Arizona race is undecided because Arizona is not done counting all of their votes. But as things stand currently, Kristen Sinema, the Democrat, she's in the lead at 49.34%, with the Republican Martha McSally right on her heels, at 48.33%. Now we move on to Florida, and Florida is not decided because we still have Bill Nelson, the incumbent Democrat, at 49.91%, and the Republican challenger for that seat is at 50.09%. The difference between these 2 candidates is 0.18, and because it is so close, Florida law mandates that a recount be done, and that is going to take place. We just don't know when it's going to take place. Finally, there's Mississippi, where we have Democrat Mike Espy at 40% and Republican Cindy Hyde-Smith at 42%. Although this race appears to indicate that the Republican Cindy Hyde-Smith is the winner, she is not. She's not the winner because in Mississippi, if none of the candidates make it to 50% of the vote, then there's a runoff between the top two candidates, and whoever wins that majority in that runoff, they win the election. So the runoff is going to happen on November 27th, 2018. We're going to move on now to the House of Representatives. And the House is where all the magic happened for the Democrats. The Democrats won enough seats to take control of the House of Representatives, as there was a gamut of historic firsts that occurred in the House of Representative elections. So we're going to start by talking about some of these historic firsts that occurred. And we have the first two Muslim women in the House of Representatives now. That is Democrat Rashida Tlaib from Michigan's 13th District. And we have Democrat Ilhan Omar from Minnesota's 5th District. We also have the youngest woman to ever be elected to the House of Representatives, and she is 29-year-old Democrat Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from New York's 14th District. Next are the first two Native American women to be elected in the House of Representatives, and there's Democrat Sharice Davids, who is also the first openly gay woman to be elected to the U.S. House of Representatives from Kansas's, shocking, Kansas, 3rd District. And there's Democrat Deb Haaland, excuse me if I'm not saying that right, from New Mexico's 1st District. Now we have the first black woman to be elected to the U.S. House of Representatives from Massachusetts, and she is Democrat Ayanna Pressley from the 7th District of Massachusetts. Then there are the first two Latina women elected to the House of Representatives from Texas. They are Democrat Veronica Escobar, representing Texas's 16th District, and Democrat Sylvia Garcia from Texas's 29th District. The other historic firsts from the midterm 2018 elections are unrelated to the House, but I want to quickly bring those up. We have the first woman governor for the state of Maine, and she is Democrat Janet Mills. And then we also have the first openly gay governor for any state in the United States, and he is Jared Polis, the new governor-elect for the state of Colorado. So, that's tremendous news for the House of Representatives. I was so shocked that night. I can remember going into that day, having a big exam that day, but I also was just really in the back of my mind worried about all the elections that were going to take place. And as you can see, that was truly historical, what happened in the House of Representatives. But there's more news to report on the House. The Democrats, they only needed 23 seats to take control. And as you can see from this 538 House forecast picture, the Democrats shattered that requirement as they already gained 28 seats, and they are forecasted to earn at least 9 more. So, feel however you want to feel, say whatever you want to say, think whatever you want to think, but this was truly a Democrat blue wave. I mean, the governorships, the House of Representatives, all the diversity that's going on in the Democrat Party now, this is truly a blue wave, and it was unexpected on the Republican side, no matter what they try to tell you. But if you're a Republican, you are happy with the fact that the Republicans were able to maintain their Senate majority. So, there's that. But now the Democrats have a House of Congress. And after the break, we're going to discuss all the consequences that are implicated with the Democrats taking over the House.
Stacey Abrams, daughter of 2 Methodist ministers, believes all Georgia children deserve access to a quality public education. And Stacey Abrams, first African-American leader in the Georgia House of Representatives, believes in an economy where we all can get ahead, no matter where we start. So we believe in Stacey Abrams for governor of Georgia, because we know Stacey Abrams believes in us. Women Vote is responsible for the content of this advertising.
All right, so we're back, everybody. Now, with every election, there are certain consequences that occur. There are certain effects, if you will. Usually, what we have is the Republican Party bitching, moaning, pouting, making a lot of noise while licking their wounds. The 2018 midterm elections, of course, were no different, especially, again, when you think about the deep blue Democrat wave that hit them this week. So we're going to review some of those consequences and some of those effects. And we're going to start by talking about what occurred in Wisconsin. We have Democrat Tony Evers that has beaten the Republican incumbent governor. Incumbent means the current one who was going for re-election. Anyways, Tony Evers beat the incumbent Republican governor in a score of 49.6 to 48.4. That's only a 1.2% difference. And while in many other states a race this close would normally end up in a recount at least being requested by the losing party, the loser, Republican Scott, can't request a recount. And he can't request a recount because he signed a law stating that there will only be a recount if the score is less than 1%. As you can see, that's 1.2% out of the margin that he set. So he set that law to prevent the Democrat who would ever run against him in the future from being able to request a recount. And karma came back and dealt him a mighty, mighty blow. So now he had to concede and give up his governorship. We are going to move on to Arizona now. And remember, we had Democrat Kristen Sinema. She's in the lead against Republican Martha McSally. And because of this Democratic lead, Republicans in Arizona are literally going to court to make sure that the state of Arizona counts less votes. Quote, the suit filed Wednesday by 4 county Republican parties alleges that the state's 15 county records don't follow a uniform standard for allowing voters to adjust problems with their mail-in ballots, and that 2 counties improperly allowed those fixes after Election Day. Democrats allege it was attempted voter suppression and that recorders have followed the same procedure for years with no issues, end quote. So basically the issue here is that Republicans don't want the mail-in ballots to be counted because mail-in ballots historically are always more Democrat than they are Republican, and that holds true for every single state. For some reason, the Democrats like to mail in their votes. At any rate, they're doing this because they know that the Republican, Martha McSally, has lost pretty much already. And what do Republicans do when they lose? They equip themselves with corrupt tools such as voter suppression to stop Democratic victories. Now we move on to Florida. In Florida, again, the Democrat incumbent Bill Nelson is trailing by 0.18% to the Republican Rick Scott. In the governor side, the margin for the governor race with Democrat Andrew Gillum at 49.17 versus Republican Ron DeSantis at 49.61, which means that this race is also going to go into a recount as the margin is only 0.44%. The margins in both the Senate race and governor race continue to get smaller and smaller because in Florida, the votes are still being counted. Because of this, Florida Senator Republican Marco Rubio took to Twitter like a high school girl having a meltdown and sent out a bunch of tweets with his characteristic prissiness that were a bunch of conspiracy theories of how Broward County, which is a county that is still counting votes, is rigging the election by allowing the Democrats to come in and change the results. And of course that wasn't enough because the current governor of Florida, again, Republican Rick Scott, the same one running for the Senate seat in Florida, he announced Thursday, November 8th, 2018, that he was suing Broward and Palm Beach counties as well as opening an investigation because they're taking too long to count the votes. Quote, I will not sit idly while unethical liberals try to steal this election from the great people of Florida, Scott said. Their goal is to keep mysteriously finding votes until the election turns out the way that they want. Left-wing activists have been coming up with more and more ballots out of nowhere, end quote. And if that wasn't enough, that same Republican Governor Rick Scott went on to say that he believes Hillary Clinton's lawyer, of all people, Hillary Clinton's lawyer, is in Florida changing the votes. But I mean, at least we can look at it this way. At least they're not talking about Hillary Clinton's goddamn emails anymore, because Lord knows we were all sick and tired of that. So next I want to move on to the exit polling that occurred from the 2018 midterm elections. And the exit polls are important because they tell you how energetic both sides are for voting. And you can see what groups of people voted for which side, and you can break it down by age, by gender, and by race. And I was kind of intrigued by the exit polling. I wasn't surprised. I was intrigued by them because with the way that Donald Trump has been acting and the way that the Republican Party has been acting, working against women, working against minorities, working against gay people, trying to make being pregnant be a pre-existing condition. And when they attempted to repeal and replace Obamacare, you would think that all women would be against the Republican Party and against Donald Trump, because that's just common sense. People with logic and common sense and reasonable thinking would not continue to vote for a party that's working against them, unless, of course, you are the 33% that are supporting Donald Trump. But we're going to stick to the point here. The exit polls told on a certain group of people, and they told on white women. In the Florida governor exit poll, 51%, the majority of white women, voted for the Republican candidate. In the Florida senator exit poll, 53%, another majority of white women, voted for the Republican candidate. And in the Georgia governor exit poll, 75% of white women overwhelmingly voted for the Republican candidate. Now, with both of these states being traditionally red states, I cannot say at all that I'm surprised by the white women voting Republican. Most people don't even consider arguments. They just know that they always vote Republican, so they're going to continue to always vote Republican. And that's just out of pure ignorance and pure idiocy, if you ask me. I just can't believe that they would continue to vote for for a party that is against them in pretty much every way imaginable. The Republican Party is known for its lack of respect for women. But I can say this, that if white women can continue to vote for Republicans, then that shows us that they don't even have their own best interests at heart. And we cannot expect them to have any of our best interests at heart. So, with that being said, we can't be surprised anymore moving forward or anywhere else at any other time, period, when they vote for Republicans. Instead, we need to continue to grow our base in different ways and stop trying to convert all of those Republican white women that are voting for Trump. We need to just let them go and do their business. And speaking of Donald Trump, he's up next. We're going to talk about the jack-o'-lantern himself right after this break.
If I had lost my medicine, I don't know what I would ever do. That would lead me to death, and I don't understand why people would think to do that.
When I see them on TV taking kids away from their parents, it's scary.
I heard if you zigzag when you run, the shooter's less likely to shoot you, so I've always been thinking, if a shooter ever comes into a classroom, I would, run through the back door and, zigzag out of the school. So, I think about that on a daily basis.
I think it is patriotic to protest.
My dad had a car wreck, and the doctor gave him pain pills, and he just got really addicted to them. So he wasn't there for 4 of my birthdays. I feel pretty bad about people taking away my health care. I'm one of those sick people that you're trying to take medicine away. Oh, hello. My name is Ruben, and I am 11 years old.
We need politicians that are actually going to do something about it.
But I can't vote.
I can't vote.
I can't vote.
I can't vote.
So vote for me.
Vote for me.
For me.
For me.
So vote for me.
All right, well, we're back, everybody, and I'm going to go ahead and move on into the next segment, which is #ProtectMueller. So I want everyone to reacquaint themselves with Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III. Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III was the first Republican senator to endorse Don the Con way back in 2016 when Don was running for president. Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, now in 2018, is the former Attorney General. That is because he has essentially been fired by Don the Con. He turned in his resignation notice November 7th of 2018, and it stated the following, quote, "At your request, I am submitting my resignation," end quote. Now, this isn't surprising at all, considering how honest Donald Trump has been in his feelings about Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III ever since Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III recused himself or removed himself from overseeing the Russia investigation. Now, normally, when a legitimate president removes someone from a position as high as the Attorney General, known as a cabinet position, normally the deputy or assistant person to that position, they move into that spot. And this line of succession is known as the Appointments Clause, and it's a part of the United States Constitution. The Appointment Clause works like this, okay? You have certain positions, the Attorney General, for example, the FBI Director, the Secretary of State, Secretary of Treasury, all these different positions, right? The President, when we have a legitimate one, gets to appoint people to those positions. And whoever he nominates for those positions has to first be approved or confirmed by the Senate in a Senate confirmation hearing. That same thing applies to whoever the deputy or the assistant position is going to be. Now, since Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III has essentially been terminated, according to the Appointments Clause of the Constitution, the assistant or deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, he should now be moved into that position. Because again, Rod Rosenstein had to also be confirmed in order to be the deputy or the assistant. But when you have an illegitimate president, like we do now, you have illegitimate actions being taken. Meet Matthew Whitaker, whom was serving as the chief of staff to Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III. Being chief of staff, of course, is not a position that requires Senate confirmation, so no harm, no foul there. Matthew Whitaker was free as a bird to take that position. But instead of moving Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein into the now vacant Attorney General position, Donald Trump has decided to move this Matthew Whitaker, who has not been confirmed, into the acting Attorney General position. But why would Donald Trump, the conservative that he is, who respects the rule of law, why on earth would he break the law, break the Constitution, and put this non-confirmed person into a confirmed position? I'm going to give you a couple of hints. Quote, a legal commentator before he came into the Justice Department, Matthew Whitaker, had mused publicly about how a Sessions replacement, Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III replacement, might reduce Mueller's budget so low that his investigation grinds to almost a halt. He also wrote in an August 2017 column that Mueller had come up to a red line in the 2016 Russia election meddling investigation that he is dangerously close to crossing after CNN reported the special counsel could be looking into Trump and his associates' financial ties to Russia. Trump has told advisors that Whitaker is loyal, and would not have recused himself from the investigation. Current and former White House officials have said, end quote. So, if you don't get where I'm headed with why Donald Trump put this idiot into the acting Attorney General position, I'm about to bring it home for you. Quote, Matthew Whitaker, whom Donald Trump named as his acting Attorney General on Wednesday, privately provided advice to the president last year on how the White House might be able to pressure the Justice Department to investigate the president's political adversaries. Whitaker was an outspoken critic of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's probe before he became the Chief of Staff to Attorney General Jeff Sessions in September 2017. That has rightfully raised concerns that Whitaker might now attempt to sabotage Mueller's investigation. But new information suggests that Whitaker, while working for Sessions, advocated on behalf of and attempted to facilitate Trump's desire to exploit the Justice Department and have the FBI investigate Donald Trump's enemies, end quote. So there you have it, everyone. Donald Trump, in all of his orange glory, is making a desperate move to get rid of the special counsel, Robert Mueller. And he's doing that because of what happened in the 2000 midterm elections. The Democrats took over the House of Representatives in the midterm elections, which means the Democrats now have subpoena power. And anytime there's going to be an impeachment, anytime, it has to always start in the House. Now that the Democrats have the House, they can start impeachment proceedings. He wants to get rid of Mueller because he doesn't want Mueller to uncover the truth of what his actions have been. But of course, Donald Trump, when he was asked about his relationship and whether he knew Matthew Whitaker or not, this is what he had to say.
Well, Matt Whitaker, I don't know Matt Whitaker. Matt Whitaker worked for Jeff Sessions, and he was always extremely highly thought of, and he still is. But I didn't know Matt Whitaker. He worked for Attorney General Sessions. I didn't speak to Matt Whitaker about it. I don't know Matt Whitaker. Matt Whitaker has a great reputation, and that's what I wanted.
But if you consider just 1 month ago that Donald Trump said this,
it says that you talked to the Attorney General's Chief of Staff about replacing the Attorney General. Apparently, according to the Post, you talked to Matthew Whitaker, but the conversation was nebulous, they depicted as. It wasn't clear whether you wanted him to replace him on an interim basis or he would be nominated on a more permanent basis. Anything to that story?
Well, I never talk about that, but I can tell you Matt Whitaker's a great guy. I mean, I know Matt Whitaker, but I never talk about conversations that I had.
One may certainly be confused, right? Of course, Donald Trump knew Matthew Whitaker a year ago, and he was a fine, fine person. And of course, Donald Trump doesn't know Matthew Whitaker now that his wicked scheme has been exposed for what it is. And trust me when I tell you that Donald Trump is using Matt Whitaker to get rid of Mueller, that it's fact, because Matthew Whitaker is also a swamp beast, just like Donald Trump. Matthew Whitaker himself is under FBI criminal investigation, and he's under investigation for being a paid advisory member for some company in Miami, Florida, that was called World Patent Marketing. And what World Patent Marketing did was they would take thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars from customers under the disguise that they would give them patents for their inventions that these people were coming up with. Instead of giving out those patents to those paying customers, this World Patent Marketing corruptly and fraudulently stole $26 million from their customers. And again, in return, those customers got bupkis, they got nothing. Matthew Whitaker was only paid a total of $9,375, where he again served as an advisory board member, and he appeared in 2 promotional videos. However, when all these investigations started in 2015, Matthew Whitaker sent a threatening email to a customer stating that he was going to impose serious civic and criminal charges against this customer. But his crimes did not stop there. Quote, a court-appointed receiver for World Patent Marketing said that several of the other advisory board members returned the fees that they received from the company, but that Mr. Whitaker, Matthew Whitaker, did not respond to a demand notice sent by the receiver, end quote. So there you have it, everyone. Don McCahon, the criminal that he is appointing other criminals to do his dirty work for him, and he's a coward. Donald Trump is a coward, therefore he hangs with other cowards, and they, of course, are going to work on behalf of him. So, make of that what you will, but pay close attention to what happens to Robert Mueller and what happens to the Russia investigation. Watch this space.
He's brought us to the brink of nuclear war, obstructed justice at the FBI, and in direct violation of the Constitution, he's taken money from foreign governments and threatened to shut down news organizations that report the truth. If that isn't a case for impeaching and removing a dangerous president, then what has our government become? I'm Tom Steyer, and like you, I'm a citizen who knows it's up to us to do something. It's why I'm funding this effort to raise our voices together and demand that elected officials take a stand on impeachment. A Republican Congress once impeached a president for far less. Yet today, people in Congress and his own administration know that this president is a clear and present danger, who's mentally unstable and armed with nuclear weapons. And they do nothing. Join us and tell your member of Congress that they have a moral responsibility to stop doing what's political and start doing what's right. Our country depends on it.
So, not only is Donald Trump a con artist, he is also, in my opinion, a domestic terrorist. I say that because he's great at inciting hate. He's also great at inciting other people to do domestic terrorist attacks. Last week, we witnessed a man attempt to bomb several of Donald Trump's opponents. We also witnessed the shooting that occurred at the Pittsburgh synagogue, which was a hate crime. And we experienced another hate crime that occurred in Kentucky with the shooting that happened at the Kroger. This week saw another 2 acts of domestic terrorism, and they were completed by, one would presume, Donald Trump supporters. And again, I say presume. First, we have 39-year-old Benjamin Craig Matthews from Arkansas, whom has been charged with 18 counts of threats to CNN, Don Lemon, Representative Maxine Waters, Planned Parenthood, Michael Avenatti, and several others. 5 of those counts are felony counts of terroristic threats, 4 counts are misdemeanor terroristic threats, and 9 counts are misdemeanor harassing communications. Quote, in one call, according to the affidavit, Matthews asked CNN switchboard operator, could I be directed to Don Lemon's dead body hanging from a tree? Another time, Matthews asked if his call could be directed to pipe bombs for Don Lemon. In another call, Matthews spoke of bloody pictures of DL cut in small pieces, like the movie Saw, according to the affidavit signed from Sergeant Brad Hurst with the Baxter County Sheriff's Office, end quote. Well, when you consider that Don Lemon is an ardent opposer, a person who hates Donald Trump, it's not surprising that this gentleman would try to attack or threaten to attack Don Lemon. Second up is 28-year-old Ian David Long, who was a U.S. Marine Corps veteran. He dressed himself in all black, and while using smoke grenades and a Glock 21.45 handgun, he killed 12 people at Borderline Bar and Grill in Thousand Oaks, California on Wednesday, November 7th, 2018. He also lost his life that night at the bar. It must be noted that this Ian David Long had years of minor offenses with the law in California before the shooting, and I want to be fair and say that there has been no direct connection to Donald Trump, nor do we know what his motives were, and we are likely not going to find out because he is now dead. I will say that this is yet another shooting that has occurred amongst record-setting numbers ever since Don the Con took office. But we want to get back on to Don T. If you'll remember these 2 women, Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal, whom are both porn stars, both of them admitted to doing something that not many people would ever have the stomach to do. They came out and told the world about how they had sex with Donald Trump while he was married to Melania, his current wife. Now, while it may be immoral and not very Christian or conservative to commit adultery, committing adultery is not a crime. The crime occurred after his adultery and the actions that Donald Trump took after his adultery. Donald Trump had his personal attorney, Michael Cohen, set up some bogus company that paid Stormy Daniels $130,000 to remain silent on the sex that she had with Donald Trump while he was married to his wife. Donald Trump also had Michael Cohen use that same bogus company to pay David Pecker, whom is the CEO of the tabloid National Enquirer. They paid David Pecker $150,000, and David Pecker used that money to buy the rights of Karen McDougal's story of sex with Donald Trump, which effectively silenced her from speaking. Quote, the Wall Street Journal found that Mr. Trump was involved in or briefed on nearly every step of the agreements. He directed deals in phone calls and meetings with his self-described fixer, Michael Cohen, and others. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan has gathered evidence of Mr. Trump's participation in the transactions, end quote. So, both of these actions are crimes against what's known as the campaign finance law, And this makes him an unindicted co-conspirator in those crimes, because although he might not have directly done them, he did give direction and had other people do them. The Constitution states that any president can be impeached for high crimes and misdemeanors, and certainly this is a crime and a misdemeanor, or maybe even higher, considering that it directly breaks the law. So we'll have to wait and see how Rob Mueller and the Congress handles it. And I'll return after the break.
This is you at the U.S. Open. This is you. Good serious motion. Boom! Very good. Keep that perfect service motion you have. Right there. Good. Boom! Switch to the backhand. Lean into it. Just follow through. Take the net. Nice try. Make sure you're controlling that ball on every shot. There you go. Very good. Back, back, back. Put it away. Be tough, just like you want to win. Just like you at the U.S. Open. Right there. This is you. Very good, Serena Williams.
Okay, so everyone knows the role of the press secretary. Essentially, that person is supposed to answer questions from the press related to the President of the United States, and that person is to be the spokesperson for all ideas and thoughts concerning the President when he or she decides that they're not going to speak for themselves. However, when you have an illegitimate president, you have an illegitimate everything else. Meet Sarah Sanders, whom is supposed to be the press secretary, but instead is nothing more than yet another dirty liar working for Donald Trump. When Donald Trump was ripping away innocent babies and children away from their families as immigrants tried to seek asylum, which is legal in this country, Sarah Sanders lied publicly and said that our current immigration laws required that we separate children and infants from their families. And this is not true. While it is an option to separate families in our current immigration laws, it is not a requirement. She did pseudo tell the truth when she said that those laws had been on the books for decades, but that's neither here nor there. She outright lied when she said that it was a requirement. And when she was asked about how she could be so heartless about separating families, considering that she herself is a mother, this was her response.
Something about
You're
it. Jill.
Don't you have any empathy?
Jill, go ahead.
Come on, Sarah, you're a parent. Don't you have any empathy for what these people are going through? They have less than you do.
Guys,
Sarah, come on,
settle down.
Seriously.
I'm trying to be serious, but I'm not going to have you yell out of turn. Jill, please
It's
call.
a law, and they have, these people have nothing. They
Hey,
come
Brian,
over
I
here
know
with
you want to
nothing.
get some more TV
It's
time, but that's not what this is
it's
about. If I
that.
want to
It's about
recognize
answering
you,
a question,
go ahead,
Sarah.
Jill.
Honestly, answer the question. It's a serious question. These people have nothing. They come to the border with nothing, and you throw children in cages. You're a parent. You're a parent of young children. Don't you have any empathy for what they go through?
Jill, go ahead.
Two questions for you. Firstly, does the president really believe that Crimea is part
Then there was this other time when Sarah Sanders was asked whether she believed Donald Trump promotes violence. Quote, The so-called president in no way, form, or fashion has ever promoted or encouraged violence. End quote. Well, here's a little compilation that CNN threw together of all the times that Donald Trump indeed has promoted violence.
I was nice. Oh, take your time. The second group, I was pretty nice. The third group, I'll be a little more violent. And the fourth group, I'll say, get the hell out of here!
Rough up, maybe he should have been roughed up, because it was absolutely disgusting what he was doing.
If you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of them, would you? Seriously. Okay? Just knock the hell. I promise you, I will pay for the legal fees, I promise. Do you know what they used to do to guys like that when they were in a place like this? They'd be carried out on a stretcher, folks. Guards are very gentle with him. He's walking out like big high fives, smiling, laughing. Like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you. In the good old days, they'd rip him out of that seat so fast. Yeah, get him out. Try not to hurt him. If you do, I'll defend you in court. Don't worry about it. Well, now then a lie. I say, what are you doing? He lied.
Do you believe that you've done anything to create a tone where this kind of violence would be encouraged?
I hope not. I truly hope not. We have to be politically correct. Oh, please don't hurt them. They're allowed to get up and interrupt us horribly, and we have to be very, very gentle and very gentle. They can swing, they can hit people, but if we hit them back, it's a terrible, terrible thing, right?
You regret saying any of those things, especially the things that you have said about punching protesters, sending them out on stretchers?
No, I don't regret it at all. Some of these protesters were violent. Yeah, I'm not happy about that, and I would always express my feelings about that.
Then there's this incident where instead of doing her job, Sarah Sanders allowed Donald Trump out of his playpen and allowed Donald Trump to carry out his own press conference. And during this press conference, a reporter with CNN named Jim Acosta attempted to ask a question from Donald Trump, and this is what happened.
In the midterms.
Here we go.
If you don't mind, Mr. President, that this caravan was an invasion. As you know, Mr. President,
I consider it to be an invasion.
As you know, Mr. President, caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the U.S.
Thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it.
Why did you characterize it as such?
Because I consider it an invasion. You and I have a difference of opinion.
But do you think that you demonized immigrants in this
all.
election
No, not
to
at
try
all.
to keep
I want them to come into the country, but they have to come in legally. You know, they have to come in, Jim, through a process. I want it to be a process, and I want people to come in, and we need the people.
Your campaign.
Wait. You know why we need the people, don't you? Because we have hundreds of companies moving in. We need the people.
They're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's
I
not
think
an
you
invasion.
should, honestly, you know
miles
what?
away.
I
That's
think
not an
you
invasion.
should, honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings
Let
would
me
be
ask,
much better.
if I may
Okay,
ask one other
enough.
question, Mr. President. I was
That's
going
enough.
to ask one of the other folks.
That's
have had,
enough.
Pardon me, ma'am. Mr.
Excuse
President,
me, that's enough.
Mr. President, I had one other
Peter,
question,
let's
if
go.
I may ask, on the Russia investigation. Are you concerned that you may have?
I'm not concerned
indictments-
about anything with
that you
the
may have
Russian
indictments coming down?
investigation because it's a hoax. That's enough. Put down the mic.
Mr. President, are you worried about indictments coming down in this investigation?
Mr. President.
As you can see, clearly Mr. Acosta maintained his professionalism, and he even politely called that woman ma'am as she attempted to wrestle and snatch his microphone away from him to stop him from asking his questions. After this incident, Sarah Sanders and the head clown, Donald Trump, they suspended the press pass of Jim Acosta, which effectively stops him from being able to do his job since he's now no longer granted access into the White House. Sarah Sanders then took it a step further, and she tweeted a statement that falsely accused Jim Acosta of assaulting that woman that tried to snatch the mic from him. Quote, "So-called President Trump believes in the free press and expects and welcomes tough questions of him and his administration. We will, however, never tolerate a reporter placing his hands on a young woman just trying to do her job. as a White House intern, end quote. She then tweeted again, of course, and this time she stated how she stands by her decision to revoke Jim Acosta's press pass and included a poorly edited and fake video which makes it appear that Jim Acosta was karate chopping the young girl's arm. And make no mistake at all that karma and history are going to judge and come after Sarah Slanders. And that's why I call her Sarah Slanders, because she lies and she slanders and she does anything Donald Trump tells her to do because she's an empty, moralless, and corrupt woman. And she disgusts me, and she should disgust everyone else, and she should be removed from her position. I'll come to conclude after the break.
If people say your dreams are crazy, if they laugh at what you think you can do, good. Because calling a dream crazy is not an insult, it's a compliment. Don't try to be the fastest in your school. Be the fastest ever. Don't believe you have to be like anybody to be somebody. Don't become the best basketball player on the planet. Be bigger than basketball. Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything. If you have only one hand, don't just watch football, play it. And if you're a girl from Compton, become the greatest athlete ever. Yeah, that's more like it. So don't ask if your dreams are crazy. Ask if they're crazy enough.
Mr. President, Yemi Shalsunder with PBS NewsHour. On the campaign trail, you called yourself a nationalist. Some people saw that as emboldening white nationalists. Now people are also
I don't
saying
know why you'd
that
say
the
that.
president.
It's such a racist
There are
question.
some people that say that now the Republican Party is seen as supporting white nationalists
Oh, I
because
don't
of your
believe
rhetoric.
that. I don't
What do
believe
you make of that?
I don't believe it. I don't know. Why do I have my highest poll numbers ever with African Americans? Why do I have among the highest poll numbers with African Americans? I mean, why do I have my highest poll numbers? That's such a racist question. Honestly, I mean, I know you have it written down and you're going to tell me. Let me tell you, it's a racist question.
And Mr. President,
I
want to
love
ask.
it. You know what the word is? I love our country. I do. You have nationalists, you have globalists. I also love the world, and I don't mind helping the world, but we have to straighten out our country first. We have a lot of problems.
And Ms.
Excuse me, but to say that, what you said, is so insulting to me. It's a very terrible thing that you said.
And Mr.
Okay,
President,
please, go ahead.
Mr.
Go
President,
ahead.
people have you
Go ahead.
talked about
Excuse me.
middle class tax cuts on the campaign trail. How will you get Democrats to support that policy? Or
You have to
support
ask
that?
them.
Well,
Hey,
what's your plan
no,
for
excuse
working
me.
with
You know
Democrats
what
on a
my
middle
plan
class
is?
tax plan?
You know what my plan is? I'll ask them. And if they say yes, I'm all for it. And if they say no, there's nothing you can do because you need their votes. Go ahead.
It's up to him.
Do you want him to rein in Robert Mueller?
What a stupid question that is. What a stupid question. But I watch you a lot. You ask a lot of stupid questions. The same thing with April Ryan. I watch her get up. I mean, you talk about somebody that's a loser. She doesn't know what the hell she's doing. She gets publicity, and then she gets a pay raise, or she gets a contract with, I think, CNN. But she's very nasty, and she shouldn't be. She shouldn't be. You've got to treat the White House and the office of the presidency with respect.
After losing the House of Representatives to the Democrats, and after losing several governorships, and remaining to be the most unpopular, distrusted, and reviled person in United States history, Donald Trump has become more desperate than we have ever seen him. And what was once thought to be impossible, Donald Trump has hit a new level of desperation vis-a-vis a new low, and that he is now attacking African American female reporters and journalists. American media and most Caucasian people love to throw around the term tribalism to describe the problems that we face in America. Tribalism meaning that it's one side versus another side. And while that may be true, it is not the root problem. The root problem is racism, but in today's society it's not tasteful to talk about racism because racism is supposed to be dead, right? Donald Trump's attacks on African American female reporters and journalists is not only cowardly, but it is an old playbook strategy used to rile up his base of blind racist supporters. Donald Trump is targeting these African American women because he knows that amongst voters, African American women are his biggest threat. It is African American female voters in Alabama that stopped the child molesting Republican Roy Moore from being elected. It is African American females that are doing the most civic organizing and voter registrations. It is African American females that are running for elections and winning them. And that is why Donald Trump is on the attack against them. He needs a new foil, a new opponent, a new something to get his base to attack. But it won't work. African American women have always amazed me with their strength and their tenacity. They go out to work, they make their own money, feed their children, raise their children, all while working to give their children more than what they've ever had. And sadly, they do it alone. Malcolm X once said that the most neglected, disrespected, and vulnerable person in America is the black woman. He is right, because African American women are all too often betrayed by society and vilified as an angry and undesirable creature instead of the strong and independent queen that she is. So my point is if the world is unable to break African American women, you can bet your ass that Donald Trump and his weak base of blind supporters stand no chance at doing so either. Thanks for watching this week's episode of Backstories. I've been working very hard to add more and more content to the show to give you the best product that I can. Please like, subscribe, and follow us. You can find us on Facebook at BackstoriesUS and on Twitter and Instagram at TheBrandonDez. We are also available on YouTube, podcasts, and iTunes, so please visit our site, backstories-us.com, for more information. I'll see you next week for another episode of Backstories, which will not be your everyday show on politics.